All right, so we're diving into Dashboard Confessional today, specifically the album, The Swiss Army Romance. We've got all the lyrics for all 10 tracks here, and I think it's safe to say this record is basically emo canon.
Oh, yeah,
It's
definitely.
not just some relic of the early 2000s. This album really shaped a whole genre.
For sure.
So we're going to break down what makes it so powerful, the themes, the lines that still make you feel things, and why it still resonates with people. You know, the people who've had their hearts ripped out a few times, if you know what I mean.
Well, and what's so interesting is like this album dropped at a crucial time for emo, right? Like it wasn't the first emo record, not at all.
Right.
But something about Chris Caraba's style, so raw, almost spoken word, and just laying his heartbreak bare, it just hit different.
Yeah.
It was like he was giving voice to this whole generation of angst that hadn't really found its outlet yet.
And it starts right from the get-go, sets the mood immediately.
Yeah.
Track one, Screaming Infidelities, that opening, can I?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
It's not your typical song opening.
Right, right.
It's like he's asking permission to, like, just unleash all this pain, and it pulls you in like you're about to hear a secret.
It's so intimate, so immediate.
Yeah.
And then how he talks about trying to outrun those memories. I'm missing your bed. I never sleep. Avoiding the spots where we have to speak. I mean, who hasn't tried to escape the ghost of a relationship like that?
Oh, for sure.
It's like he's stuck in this loop,
Yeah.
wanting to be with anyone to just numb the pain, but then that specific ache for her just comes crashing back.
You said that specific ache, it's palpable. And the repetition, like that, your hair, it's everywhere. It's almost claustrophobic, like he's surrounded by these physical reminders. Can't escape.
And he does it with such simple language, almost conversational,
Yeah.
but every line feels supercharged with emotion.
Yeah.
It's like he's talking directly to you, sharing this deeply personal thing.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so powerful.
Right.
It's not poetry for the sake of poetry. It's just raw, unfiltered emotion.
Totally.
I remember, like, high school, first heartbreak, feeling like no one understood.
Oh, I know the feeling.
But then you hear a song like this, and it's like, oh, he gets it.
Right. It validates all that teenage angst,
Exactly.
that feeling of just being swallowed whole by heartbreak.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just some like small subculture thing, Dashboard Confessional, tapped into something universal.
For sure. For sure.
A lot of people felt that.
All right. Track two, the sharp hint of new tears. Still in heartbreak territory, but the setting is key here.
The car, right. It becomes this confessional.
Yeah.
On the way home, this car hears my confessions. I think tonight I'll take the long way.
Mm-hmm.
He's just driving around, processing his emotions. The car's this bubble of privacy where he can just let go.
And he does not hold back.
No, no.
You expect me to apologize for things that you've done wrong?
Right?
There's this anger, this frustration with being blamed for her actions.
For sure. That unfair burden of guilt. It's a classic relationship thing.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not just wallowing. There's also this, like, self-awareness.
Yeah.
My sighs, they ring victorious in fog, this tinted glass. And it's clouded, and so is my head. Like, he's admitting he's messed up. His emotions are getting in the way.
It's so refreshing, you know? You don't always get that kind of honesty, especially from guys.
True.
There's that expectation to be stoic, get over it. But here, it's like he's giving you permission to feel it all.
And that ties into the whole emo scene at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, embracing vulnerability, rejecting the typical masculine ideals.
Oh, yeah.
No wonder it resonated so strongly with young men who were maybe grappling with those expectations.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit.
Okay.
Living in Your Letters, this one hits differently. Not so much the sting of fresh heartbreak, but that lingering ache of missing someone.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the way he clings to those physical reminders. Poring over photographs on Living in Your Letters, breathe deeply from this envelope. It smells like you.
Right.
It's like he's trying to rebuild her presence through these objects.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, in our digital world now, do we still have those kinds of tangible anchors to the past?
It's a good question. Does a saved text thread have the same weight as a box of old love letters? I don't know.
Right.
There's something about the physicality, the scent, the texture. It triggers memories in a way a digital file just can't.
That's true.
But it also makes me think about how technology has changed how we experience distance in relationships.
How so?
Well, take the line, phone calls from further away and messages on my machine, but I don't ever tell you this distance seems terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He's downplaying the pain, but you can hear that longing.
Yeah,
Would it be the same if they had FaceTime? I wonder.
interesting.
It's something to think about as we go through the album, how these themes might play out differently today.
Totally.
All right, track 4, the title track, The Swiss Army Romance. This one feels different, less about a specific relationship and more this broader critique of superficiality, especially in college.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah.
You're dying to look cute in your blue jeans, but you're plastic just like everyone, just like everyone. He's calling out the fakeness, the pressure to conform, especially when you're young and trying to figure yourself out.
And that totally resonates with the emo scene, right?
Absolutely.
There's this whole look, this aesthetic, but the music is raw and emotional.
Yeah,
Like they're trying to find some authenticity in a world that feels fake.
exactly.
And it's not just about looks. There's the line, making up a history, it's nothing from the life you lead, but man, will they buy all your lines? It's that pressure to create a persona, even if it means hiding who you really are.
Something we can all relate to, especially now with social media.
Yeah, it's this constant performance.
Exactly.
Trying to project the right image, even if it's not you inside.
Right.
And then that line, youth's the most unfaithful mistress, still we forge ahead to miss her. It's so bittersweet, acknowledging that this time, this youthfulness, it's fleeting.
Oh, that line gets me every time.
Right.
It's like he's saying we're all chasing this ideal, this youth and beauty.
Yeah.
But even as we're chasing it, we're already mourning its loss.
Yeah, it's like he's capturing nostalgia for a time that's not even over yet.
Right, exactly.
And it makes you think about how we experience time cleaning into these moments as they're slipping through our fingers.
For sure.
Okay, Turpentine Chaser brings us back to relationship drama, but this time there's a metaphor at play.
The peeling paint, right?
Yeah.
Such a strong image.
Oh, yeah.
This paint has been tasting of lead, and their chips will fall as they may. But it's not just my finish that is peeling, and it is not alone fleeing these walls. He's comparing the paint to the relationship, the layers of hurt just building up.
And there's this element of denial, trying to ignore the problems.
Yeah.
The frightening facts we've been facing our backs for so long now are begging for eyes to bear witness to lies and indifference. They're pretending everything's fine, but underneath, it's all falling apart.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Haven't we all been there trying to paint over the problems instead of dealing with them head on?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that ending brutal. The new coats of paint will not reequate broken hearts to broken homes. Broken homes.
Oh, it hits hard.
Sometimes you can't just fix things with a fresh coat of paint.
Nope, sometimes the damage is too deep.
It's a tough lesson, but an important one.
For sure.
It kind of sets the stage for the rest of the album, this exploration of picking up the pieces and moving on.
Exactly.
Okay, A Plain Morning is next, and it feels like a breath of fresh air after Turpentine Chaser, this gentler kind of longing.
It's less about the pain of lost love and more about the comfort of home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those simple things that make a space feel safe.
I'm missing home. And it feels like it's colder than it ought to be in March. You can feel that chill, that emptiness.
And the details, there's pillows in their cases, and one of those is mine. It's not grand gestures, it's the everyday things that remind you of someone.
Yeah, and that perfume sprayed I love you. Such a specific sensory detail.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you can almost smell it. So intimate and tender.
It's interesting because it speaks to that universal longing for home, for belonging.
That need for connection, a place where we feel safe and loved.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even when we're lost and alone, there are those airs, those sources of comfort that we can turn to.
Age 6 Racer takes us back to that youthful, bittersweet feeling of summer love ending.
Yeah, it's got that melancholic vibe from the start. So long, sweet summer. It's cold where you're going. I hope that your heart's always warm. Saying goodbye to a fleeting romance, acknowledging that things are changing.
And there's that hint of regret, of things left unsaid. I gave you the best that I had. You passed on the letters and passed on the best that I had. Putting your heart out there and not having it reciprocated, classic young love stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's silly.
Yeah, and even though it's about this summer romance, it evokes this broader nostalgia for a time that's past, a feeling you can't get back.
Right.
It's realizing we can't hold on to everything. Some things are meant to be fleeting, like summer itself.
For sure.
But the memory of it, that warmth, it stays with you.
And shapes who you become.
Again, I go unnoticed. This one is so relatable.
Tell me about it.
It's that feeling of being unseen, unappreciated in a relationship.
It's about that frustrating miscommunication, feeling like you're speaking different languages.
Totally.
Please send me anything but signals that are mixed because I can't read your rolling eyes. He's trying to figure her out, but it's just mixed signals.
Yeah, and it speaks to that fear of vulnerability, of putting yourself out there and not knowing how the other person will react.
Mm-hmm.
So quiet, another wasted night, again it goes unnoticed. He's trying, but it's not being acknowledged, and that's rough.
It's tough.
Yeah,
But even with the frustration, there's a little bit of hope.
yeah.
This mood of yours is temporary. It seems worth the wait to see your smile again. He's holding on to that belief that things will get better, that it's worth fighting
It's
for.
that push and pull.
Yeah.
For wanting closeness, but also fearing rejection.
Which Ender Will Save Us All explores even further.
Yeah, the harder I push, the further I fall. That feeling of wanting intimacy but pushing it away, being scared of vulnerability.
It's something so many people struggle with, especially early on in relationships.
Absolutely.
Trying to find that balance.
And he wants to be there for her to help, but he doesn't know how.
Yeah.
I want to give you whatever you need. What is it you need? Is it what I need? Wanting to fix things, but realizing he might not have the answers.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, especially if you're used to being in control.
And then that self-doubt creeps in. Maybe it's trite, but I can always, always, always be wrong. Second-guessing himself, not wanting to mess things up.
So common in relationships.
Isn't it?
You want to be supportive, but you don't want to overstep.
Exactly.
Finding that balance is hard.
For sure.
Speaking of space, the final track, Shirts and Gloves, brings us to long-distance relationships.
Yeah, that feeling of longing for connection, being out of sync with someone you care about,
When I'm back from the road and you're out on it and I'm tired of this distance.
and the timing's always off.
Oh, isn't it? And the note that you had called says you're half a day away and you are heading home just in time for me to leave. It's like the universe is conspiring to keep them apart.
It's relatable. That feeling of always missing each other
Yeah.
makes you think, how do we handle distance in relationships now?
Yeah.
Technology, or accepting it's just part of the deal.
It's a good question, something I think we'll explore further as we dig deeper into the album.
Definitely.
Because even though the Swiss Army Romance came out over 2 decades ago, these themes of longing, connection, communication, they're even more relevant today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll keep unpacking it all.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is. It is. Okay, so we just finished listening to all 10 tracks on the Swiss Army Romance. And I'm getting those familiar pangs, that mix of nostalgia and heartbreak. But there's also this little sliver of hope that always seems to come with this record.
Yeah, it's potent stuff.
It is.
And what gets me is how, this album is so personal to Chris Carrabba, his experiences, but it also manages to hit these universal notes of emotion.
Right.
It's like he's speaking for all of us,
Hmm.
those messy feelings we all have, but we don't always know how to say out loud.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, thank God. I'm not the only who feels this way.
Right. It makes you feel less alone.
Yeah, somebody gets it.
One thing that stands out to me is how he uses places, physical objects, to trigger memories and emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Shark Hint of New Tears, the car becomes this moving confessional.
Right, right.
The place where he can process everything while just driving around.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like by moving forward physically, he can also move forward emotionally.
That's a really cool point. It makes me think of all those late night drives I've taken with the music blasting, trying to figure things out.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the car becomes this safe space, a bubble to just let it all out.
And I remember those letters and photographs and living in your letters. It's not just stuff. They represent the relationship infused with memories, even scent.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think, do these tangible things even have the same meaning in today's world?
That's the question that keeps coming back to me. Like,
Yeah.
would those lyrics hit as hard if it was about scrolling through old text or rewatching a video? I don't know.
Right.
There's just something about a handwritten letter, the smell of perfume on a picture. It hits differently.
It really does.
Yeah, it's about the power of our senses to take us back to that moment.
Yeah, it's something we're maybe losing touch with as we rely more on digital communication.
Totally agree.
Another thing that got to me was how fleeting youth is, especially in the Swiss Army Romance.
Yeah.
That line, youth's the most unfaithful mistress. Still we forge ahead to miss her. It's just so poignant.
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet, yeah.
It's like knowing these moments won't last, these feelings.
But even as we chase them, we're already missing them.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it hits harder when you're younger. You're right in the thick of it.
Right, you're trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away.
But there's beauty in that too, in the fact that things don't last forever.
It's true. It's a good lesson to learn, even if it's hard.
Speaking of hard lessons, this album doesn't sugarcoat anything about communication or relationships.
No, not at all.
Again, I go unnoticed. It's basically the miscommunication anthem.
Oh, for sure.
That feeling of trying to connect, putting yourself out there, but getting nothing back.
Yeah, like you're speaking different languages. It's so frustrating.
And it taps into that fear of being vulnerable, of having your heart rejected.
It's a risk, isn't it? Opening up.
It is, and I think that's something we all struggle with, especially at the beginning of a relationship.
Yeah, finding that balance between wanting to be close but also protecting yourself.
It's
Trigger
hard.
Will Save Us All digs into that even more, that push and pull dynamic.
Yeah, he wants to be there to help, but he doesn't know how.
I want to give you whatever you need. What is it you need? Is it what I need? It's like wanting to be the good guy, but also not having the answers.
Yeah, and there's the self-doubt that creeps in.
Oh, maybe it's trite, but I can always, always, always be wrong. Second guessing everything.
Not wanting to mess up.
It's so relatable.
It is wanting to be there for someone, but also terrified of making things worse.
And then the distance. It's everywhere in this album. The actual distance in shirts and gloves, but also the emotional distance in songs. Like, again, I go unnoticed, right?
It's a thread through the whole thing.
Yeah, it makes you think about how we handle distance in our relationships. Physical, emotional, even the distance that can just be there between two people trying to connect.
Yeah, it's a universal thing.
And the Swiss Army Romance captures that struggle so perfectly.
It's interesting because even though it's tied to a specific time, the early 2000s emo scene, it's also about these timeless human things.
Like what?
Heartbreak, that need for connection, the struggle to communicate. People have been dealing with that forever.
That's what makes it such a lasting piece of art.
Yeah.
He goes beyond the genre, beyond the time it came out, because it's about something everyone goes through.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what about this album resonates most with you? What sticks with you?
For me, it's how honest and open Caraba is in every song.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from those messy feelings, and that makes us feel like we can do the same.
I agree. It's like, it's okay to feel these things, to be heartbroken, to be angry, to be confused, to be hopeful. It's all valid.
And when we're vulnerable, that's when we really connect with ourselves and with other people. It's letting our guard down, letting people see us, flaws and all.
That's a powerful message, especially now when everyone feels pressure to be perfect.
Right?
The Swiss Army Romance reminds us it's okay to not be perfect, to be messy, to just be human.
And to find beauty in those imperfections, in the cracks and scars.
Because that's what makes us unique.
Exactly.
So to everyone listening, we want to hear what resonated with you from this album.
Yeah, what stuck out to you?
What feelings did it bring up?
Share your thoughts on social media. Let's keep talking about it.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going.
It's important stuff.
Before we officially wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
We talk about how the Swiss Army Romance explores communication and connection and how those things might be different now with technology.
Right.
So here's the question. In a world of emojis and voice notes and virtual relationships, how do we build those deep, meaningful bonds like the ones in this album?
Do those handwritten letters, those perfume-scented photographs, do they have a digital version? Or is it something about the physical object that just can't be replicated online?
It's something to think about as we figure out love and connection in this digital world.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Because even though technology changes how we connect, we all still need to feel loved and like we belong.
And the Swiss Army Romance reminds us of that in a way that feels timeless, but also really urgent.
So think about how the digital age has affected your experiences with love, with loss, with connection.
And maybe revisit some of those old love letters, those reminders of a time before swiping right in DMs.
Yeah.
It's good to unplug sometimes, to get away from the online noise and reconnect with those raw emotions, the things that make us human.
Yeah, good stuff. It's funny, we talk about all this longing and connection stuff in the digital age, but Swiss Army Romance itself, it's like a snapshot of a time before social media,
Right. Like, imagine screaming infidelities happening today.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't be a hair on the pillow. It would be an Instagram story seen at 2 a.m.
Oh, man. The drama. It makes you think, though, does betrayal even hit the same when it's all over the internet?
It's a different kind of public,
Yeah.
Back then, heartbreak was more private.
Yeah.
But now, everyone's pain is out there for everyone to see, which can be good and bad.
Right. Validating, but also kind of overwhelming.
Exactly.
And remember how we talked about the car being like a confessional?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now everyone's got a confessional in their pocket, their phone.
That's true.
They can just broadcast their feelings to the world, which is kind of scary, honestly.
It really makes you think about authenticity, doesn't it? Like, can you even have that raw honesty of the Swiss Army romance when everyone's so busy curating their online self?
That's a great point.
Right.
It's like everyone's performing, trying to look perfect, even when they're falling apart.
Makes the Swiss Army romance itself seem even more relevant now.
Oh, yeah.
That whole critique of being fake, it hits harder with all the filters and influencers and stuff.
Totally. It's like we're all trying to fit in, look good in those metaphorical blue jeans, even if it means losing ourselves.
But here's the thing. I think this album gives us a way out of that.
Yeah.
It reminds us it's okay to be vulnerable, to be messy, to just be real.
Exactly. Like, it's okay to not have it all figured out.
It's those moments of honesty, those unfiltered feelings. That's where real connection happens.
Yeah, letting go of the pressure to be perfect.
And maybe that's the key to the question we asked before, how to connect in this digital world.
Yeah.
By being authentic, letting your guard down, showing up as you are, even the messy parts.
Finding those spaces, whether online or in person, where you can be yourself and connect on a deeper level.
It might be a text with a friend, a voice note where you say what you're really feeling, or even just a comment on a song that makes you feel understood.
Just those little moments that remind us we're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we finish up this deep dive into the Swiss Army romance, we want to encourage everyone to embrace those moments of vulnerability, find those real connections, and never be afraid to let yourself feel everything.
Because that's what makes life real, you know?
Yeah.
Letting those raw emotions out, that's where the magic happens.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through heartbreak, longing, and all the complicated beauty of human connection.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Keep listening to the music, keep your hearts open.
For sure.
We'll see you next time.